So now we're going to turn to, now that we know a little bit more about stress, some strategies for reducing holiday stress. So we know some strategies that don't work. So when people say try to be more positive, that does not work. That just increases irritability most of the time. So if you were able to be more positive most of the times, you would be more positive. So that just creates like an additional level of stress that most people don't need. Just stop worrying too. That's kind of a corollary of that. Don't worry, be happy. Most people, if they could stop worrying, they would do that. Yeah, she said like a switch. They want you to have a switch, but we just don't have a switch. And when we do try to use that switch, there's a study by Wegner in 1994, and that was I think it was the white bear study. And he had a group of people that he told not to think about white bears, and then another group that he told to think about white bears, and then followed up with them like several hours later, and he found that the people he told not to think about white bears during this task just could not think about anything but white bears. So it kind of introduced studies on what we talk about as thought suppression. So anytime you try to squash something down or not think about it, it oftentimes just unleashes more thoughts about it. So one of the keys in reducing anxiety and stress is to actually expose yourself, and that's part of post-traumatic stress disorder treatment now. Instead of avoiding or not talking about things, it's kind of bringing it all to the front and dealing with it more directly. And that's the same reason that, say, alcohol or drug overuse don't work, because they're usually avoidance or numbing techniques. And then distraction and procrastination, they tend to get reinforced because you feel better doing them. Like, oh, I'm going to distract myself. I'm not going to think about that. But then an hour later, you're right back to, oh, this problem is still here. So, and then sometimes with procrastination, the problem just gets bigger. So avoidance and numbing strategies typically make you feel better, which reinforces them, but don't work in the long term. So some healthy stress reduction strategies. I tried to group these into physical, financial, spiritual, and emotional. But a lot of them really overlap, because if you're working in one area to correct something or to reduce stress in that area, it can often improve the other area. And I included this picture. This was from, let's see, where was it? It was Sequoia National Park. And wanted to go there and see the beautiful trees, and it was in May, and so I was thinking, oh, we're going to have really great weather, this is going to be wonderful, and then boom, dropped all of the snow, and we could barely hike, and but then, so that was like, I had to think, okay, you just have to change your expectation here, you have to take what's come here, sort of with cancer, boom, it just drops on you. So how does that change your expectations, and how can you deal with those like changed expectations and live with those? So starting with the body, if your doctor recommends it, get the flu shot. That's the first thing. So she said she had hers today. I need to get mine, so that's on the test list. Dress warm but comfortable for the holidays. No sense in going places all dressed up and not being comfortable. Definitely using antibacterial hand wash when traveling. So you may do a good job at taking care of yourself, but you're in an airport, people are touching all kinds of things, so use your hand wash. Consider healthy options for parties. So if you have a healthy dish, consider taking that to the party and eating that primarily. Drinking a lot of water when you go to a party so you feel fuller. And then trying not to stand near the snack table, like getting as far away from that as you can, and trying to avoid grazing during those times. Stretch prior to, during, and after long days of cooking, eating, and wrapping. So during the holidays, we might tend to push ourselves to go all day, and sometimes meal preparation, if you're preparing for a lot of people, that can take 8 to 10 hours easily. So just being sure that you do take breaks and rest and stretch out. And then many of us wait till after the holidays to start any kind of exercise program. Oh, I'll wait till January 1st. That seems like the perfect time. So you're putting off on, through that might be a good idea, so you could enjoy the holidays and not be recovering. So that's the other side of it, when you're waiting on surgery. But if you can, like, start some minimal exercise before the holidays, so you're not trying to start something early in the year when there's already a lot of changes happening, so you'd get a head start. And then how many of you have heard of activity pacing? So what is activity pacing?
Not taking on too many things at one time, pacing yourself as you participate in different activities, and making sure that if you are doing more than one activity, you're actually planned for it, you've actually planned for them and are prepared for them.
Yeah.
So it doesn't cause extra stress.
Yeah, that's a terrific summary. So she was talking about prioritizing your activities, so knowing which are most important to accomplish, planning those activities that you're trying to do. And one of the things with activity pacing, so what tends to happen when people are sick and they have either pain or fatigue is they might have a good day, and on that good day they're going to try to do everything that they might feel like, I got to get all this done because I'm having a good day. But then what happens the next day is really crashing and just not being able to do anything, and then you might spend the next couple of days in bed. And then with this cycle, because you're down and out for a couple of days, you might start to feel bad, like, I can't do anything. And then it starts all over because you'll have a good day and then try to cram everything in. So activity pacing is really breaking down your activities into what's most important, and really, if you know your limit cooking, you start to feel a lot of pain or fatigue after an hour of cooking, break that down by half. So you want to stop before you start feeling really fatigued or in a lot of pain. So, and take a break, take a break for 15 minutes and then get back up and do it. Just be sure, like you were saying, it requires some planning so that you're not just cooking the turkey for 6 hours, you're planning those breaks in between. And that goes for any other activities, not trying to cram too much into one day. What about any other strategies that you have used to deal with stress and take care of the body?
Delegating. Making sure that if there are a lot of things that you have to do, you have help with. It's really easy to try to take on everything yourself, and then you have those instances where you crash. So it's really helpful if you delegate things instead of trying to do everything yourself.
Yeah, definitely. So she was saying delegating tasks, and we'll talk a little bit about this. So that requires knowing who's in your support system and what they might be best at or what they can do to help out in that support system. Anything else that you might do to take care of your body during the holidays? Yeah, I'm surprised I didn't put that, paying attention to your sleep. So making sure you know how much sleep you need to function, and then trying to stay on a sleep schedule that works for you. Okay. Financial health. I think we often forget this as an aspect of our overall health until after the new year, when the damage is done. So make a list and check it twice. And what that means is think about who you might be buying or making gifts for, and maybe this year, if it's particularly a financial crunch, think about is it necessary to have everyone on that list? Do you need to buy for everyone? And, especially if you have a really large family, everyone in that family circle, or, is there a certain age point that you stop buying gifts, or do you want to just get, or make like one important gift for certain family members? So really think about who you're spending for. Developing a budget and trying to stick to it. So what is your budget for the holidays? Knowing what that target number is and trying to stick within that budget. Rotating holiday celebrations. So if the holiday celebration is always at your place and you're just not feeling up to it, having a lot of back pain, for instance, see if you can go elsewhere, like delegate to another family member. Oh, I think it'd be really great if we went here. And that's true. Just, I know my siblings, we try to rotate during the holidays where we go, so it's not all on one person. And we definitely have each other bring stuff in, so it's, again, not all on one person. Do shopping in advance or online, so you don't have to be out in the crowds like with pain or fatigue. And then don't forget the coupons. Like, I rarely now will ever go into a store and pay full price for anything, especially with a phone. I will look up like Retail Me Not or Coupon Sherpa or wherever I'm going, blank coupon, and that'll pop up like, usually 10, 15, 30% off. And so that way you can save some money. And then homemade gifts too, like, either things that you make or cook. Like on one side of our family, it got so large, I was always amazed. My grandmother would knit different things for all of the grandchildren, and I would think, my gosh, she must have started in January to get that done by December. And yeah, how much I appreciated that, just. Yeah, they multiply, and then it's just so much knitting, and just so appreciated when you can make something homemade. And I remember in college, was really limited on the funds, and so I got my parents mugs and just wrote them like a nice verse or something on it, and they loved it. So think about other routes. Are there other things that you guys do to stay financially fit during the holidays?
I never stay on budget, so no.
So budget's a problem sometimes, yeah. Mm-hmm. Anything else that no, this is one where we all just do our best. And then, come January, what just happened? So spiritual health, I define spirituality pretty broadly here. So, and this picture just reminds me of one of my good friends was talking about. For years, she had these expectations to take her kids to see Santa, and every year she thought she was going to get this really wonderful picture, and then something like this would happen, and it was just a huge stress for her to get them dressed up. And she said, why am I doing this? Why are we causing this stress for the whole family when it never works out? So then they found something else fun to do. And so I always think about that. Well, if things aren't working out, think about how you can change your expectations.
That happen, that's actually kind of cool, because you can look back on the different stages of how the kids reacted to different things. So even if it's what you think is a bad photo, it's cute. Yeah, it's cute. And later on down the line, when they get older,
Yeah, but in the moment, you might feel stressed. So that's the whole thing, like changing your perspective about it. In the moment, like, yeah, in the future, I might appreciate this so much more. So I'm just going to let go of that expectation that it's going to be this way right now. I had created some handouts. Would you mind? Okay, great. Thank you so much. So, yeah, there's 3 different handouts, and one of them just asks kind of a simple question. And if you brought a pen, take a moment and kind of jot down your responses to this question. But what 3 things are important or meaningful to you during the holidays? So we're just going to take a minute and do some writing. Okay, so I'd like you to think about which of these is most important. So if you haven't listed them in order of like which feels most important to you, just think about that and then put them in order in your mind as to which is most important. And then there's a calendar at the bottom. So think about when you would prefer these things to happen. Yeah, that's true. And that's yeah, she's talking about Xing it out and just not doing any of it. Yeah, and so that's an option. And this just gets you thinking about, if you just want to have one thing that you do during the holidays that makes sense to you and makes it meaningful, and you've done that, you are good. So the more you kind of layer on in terms of things that you feel like you have to do, the harder it can be. And then also, with whom do you want to do these things and with whom do you not want to do these things? And so keeping that in mind, that you really do have a choice. And it may not feel like it, but you do have a choice with who you spend time with during the holidays. And so really trying to set some limits on that. So if you get one thing on that list accomplished, you are all good. And you don't have to do 8 to 10 things to make it a good holiday. Refining expectations. So thinking about gifts as heartfelt versus perfect. So is this a good enough, gift? Yes, it's a good enough gift. It's a gift, and it, means something to me. Whether or not the person receives it with my intent, that's up to them. I don't control that, and that's all right. Challenging comparisons. I think our minds have a tendency to just go there, just to do comparisons with other people, and I've really worked on that over time, and that's probably one of the most helpful like mind games or mind strategies that I use whenever my mind goes to starting to compare. Oh, well, they might be doing this, or they have this, or I'll immediately call it out. Like, oh, mind, you're doing a comparison here, and that's really not going to help me. It's not going to help anyone. So really trying to eliminate those comparisons that you're making. And again, is this a have to or a want to? You really want to fill your time as much as possible during the holidays with want tos versus things that you feel like you have to do. What about that? Do you feel like that's something that you do, or?
I think I turn everything into a have to.
Mhm.
I have to cook, I have to clean, I have to buy gifts, I have to decorate, I have to do this, I have to do that. Everything turns into, at the holidays, everything turns into a have to.
Yeah, she's saying everything turns into a have to, and I think that's like on that list we looked at, that holiday stress, just that extra pressure to do or to feel certain ways. What do you think is the consequence for you when you have a lot of have tos?
I'm usually stressed during the holidays, and then after the holidays, I usually kind of crash. I know last year, even though I was taking treatments, I still tried to do everything because my family was used to having Christmas at my house, having Thanksgiving at my house, and there's a certain expectation, and then you don't want to drop the ball, and you don't want to lower the bar either. So I usually got sick afterwards.
Yeah, so she's telling a really familiar story. So because you've usually had everyone at your place, you tried to do everything and tried to do it as well, to the standard or expectation. And that created a lot of stress for you, and then you crashed after the holidays. And
Actually, I think I actually went to the hospital on Christmas.
oh, you did?
So, yeah,
Uh-huh.
that was last year.
Yeah, so she was doing all of that during treatment. And looking back on that, what would you have done differently, or could you have done differently?
Probably would have delegated to someone else's house, but at the time, I felt okay when they asked, and so I was like, okay, yeah, I'll do that. But then afterwards, I should have known better, but now that I do.
Yeah. And she was the first to say delegate when we were talking about other strategies. Yeah. So, and even if you have said yes, even if you've said yes to something in the moment and you were feeling really good about it, there's always a no. And you can always go to that no, because things change, especially with cancer. You may be feeling well, and then all of a sudden you're not. Something comes up, you're just extremely fatigued or in pain, and that no is always there, and the re-delegation is always there. So thank you for sharing that. Setting boundaries. So one of the things that comes out a lot during the holidays that I get to hear a lot about in my work is family dysfunction. And one of the biggest... Well, I can just tell you that there is a whole range of family dysfunction, and there is no family without dysfunction. So if you're walking around with that load of, I'm the only family with dysfunction, you are not alone. Yeah, there's always some type of dysfunction. So the best you can do during the holidays with that family dysfunction is to remain civil. Just try to keep your cool with it, but do not tolerate abuse. So if you're going to go somewhere or someone's coming and you're expecting emotional abuse, heaven forbid, like physical abuse, please talk to someone like a social worker, anyone at the hospital to help with that situation. But if it's emotional abuse, use your boundaries and, maybe say to the person, like, I'm only going to be here for half an hour, or I'm only going to be here 15 minutes, and then I'm going to go. And if the abuse starts, we're just not going to do that today, and the end of it. Because you don't need that to add to the stress of the holidays, especially if you got cancer layered on everything else. Acceptance can be another key strategy for you. Accept that now may not be the best time to resolve family conflicts or problems. You may think, everybody's together, we're going to do a little intervention. But, you have this time of year to try to generate some positive energy. So maybe move the intervention to a different time or place. Talk to family members in advance about your holiday plans, and again, consider alternating so it's not all on you. And then set some healthy boundaries for yourself. Like, too many things going on, say no. I'm sorry, I can't do that. Or that really sounds like fun, but I just have too many things planned already, or too many things on my plate. Assert yourself. So if there's something really stressful going down in your family, you have a right to say, when you do X, I feel Y. I'd really appreciate it if you didn't do that right now, or do that. You may not change, and in all likelihood, you're not going to change that person's behavior, but it is really important that you assert yourself for your self-esteem. And that could be the only reason that you do say something in a situation. It may not change it, but at least you've put it out there. And generally, like, instead of saying something like, when you, I always use the laundry example because that's common for most. When you leave the laundry sit in the basket after it dries, and then I get all wrinkly, I get really angry, and so could you please fold them after you take them out of the dryer? So I usually won't use the word angry because that just puts people on the defensive. But when it's your turn and you take the laundry out and then they don't get folded and they're wrinkly, it's just really a pain, or adds more stress because then we have to do something about that, or wear wrinkly clothes, which I typically do to solve the problem. And so then using terms like I feel upset or I feel bothered, like that tends to go over better than I feel angry. And then asking for help, like one of the biggest things that I think we tend to do is, one, either think that if we don't do it, it's not going to get done right. That's a typical thought that keeps you from asking for help. Or you might think, they should know what I need. They've seen me do this, year after year. But people can't read minds, and sometimes you have to say, can you move this, or can you help me with this, or let's do this. And then often they might feel good at being able to help versus trying to read minds. Tips for saying no. I really like grumpy cats, so ho ho no. So remember that, just to help you to laugh a little bit when you're having to say no, because sometimes that can be hard during the holidays. A good way, I can't commit to this as I've made other priorities, which you have. You've made your top 3 list, and if it's not on that list, it's not on your top 3 priorities. Let me think about it first, and I'll get back to you. That's really good with someone who's putting on the pressure. Can you do it? Can you do that? Good. Yeah, just give yourself some time, because it's a lot easier to come back and say, I thought about it. I really can't do this. I'm not the best person to help on this. Why don't you try X? So that involves giving up your notion that you're going to do it best, and might be good training for someone else to learn how to do it. And don't feel that you have to give a reason. You may need to repeat yourself several times. So if it's in your mind that you don't want to do something, you really don't have to give a long list of excuses or explain yourself. You have the right to say, no, I just don't want to do that. And then with really persistent people, you have to keep repeating, no, I'm sorry, I don't want to do that.